It's happening, guys. It's happening.
Oh, but who's first? That's more important. Who's first? Let me see here. Hard for me to move this from here. Here we go. Who is first?
Viola.
Viola Knight. Good to see you. Miss Christine Love, John and Jen. Alice, good to see you. Sir Robbie, there you are. Hi, Scott. Good to see ya. Israel, hello, hooray. It's great to see everybody.
Yeah, I like that thumbnail. I thought it was cool. Yeah, so ChatGPT can do something good every now and then.
Well, I wanted one that's a little bit funnier, but I'll take it for now.
Yeah, it's been crazy, guys. How are you guys doing? How is everybody out there? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Are you still riding high, riding over the storm that's on the earth below?
Oh my gosh, it's been, if anything, it's been a little difficult, but good to see you. Hello there, Diana, Susan, great to see you. Skydra, Deanna. Hi, Mary L. Oh my goodness, Susan Donahue, Modern Refugee, Bob Hawk. Hi, guys.
Absolutely. Good to see everybody. It's just wild out there. So, the first thing we talked about in the first video today on evolutionary, by the way, again, there's 3 channels on YouTube: Evolutionary Energy Arts, EEARTS, and Heart's Home. Heart's Home is just kind of lighter stuff. We don't cover any of the new stuff, more spirituality and deep dives of that nature. Well, we were talking about this quake because this can move a lot of energy. This was a 7.5. I saw a source saying 7.6. That's very significant. 229.5 kilometers deep. Typically, a deep quake like that is going to bring about another quake of equal magnitude or maybe a little bit bigger. So somewhere from a 7.5 to maybe an 8 or a little bit bigger than that, I would expect probably within the next week, 10 days. And it's interesting. You look for trends. This energy could go kind of any way. Typically, it might end up terminating down here. Could go across the plate. Could go back towards Indonesia, the Philippines, Japan, or even up towards Kamchatka and the Aleutians, or over to the U.S. West Coast and Canada. There's a lot of smaller quakes right now happening in Nevada, Utah, as you can see up here in Seattle. California always has a whole bunch of quakes. But what we do have is a decent amount of them. So this is right here, this one anyway is in Creech Air Force Base. A lot of times when you see these, I get suspicious that it's the military doing something, which, that happens all the time. This is one of the biggest military bases on the planet. And, we're going to talk a little later about the fact that they've been building deep underground military bases to escape everybody that's on the surface's fate, so to speak, for a long time. There's a lot underground. In fact, there may be more beings living under and inside the earth than living on the surface. I think that's a good bet. So right now, what we see after this big earthquake is not a lot of swarming. There's a few here. You see a few. I might expect a little bit more than that for a 7.5. But what you see also is this has gone quiet. That could be worrisome. So this is the triangle that the manga artist Ryo Tatsuki had talked about, having a gigantic, monstrous quake that she had thought was going to happen, back in July of last year now, but that never manifested. But timelines can change and energies do change. But right now, it looks pretty quiet over there. So, Taiwan, Japan, Philippines, I'd have my guard up right now.
Mm-hmm. And Miss Susan Donahue says the first Good Friday was on April 3rd. 33 AD in the crucifixion. Jesus this year, Good Friday, it falls on April 3rd. Abraham Lincoln assassinated on Good Friday. Alaska, 9.2 quake. Was also a Good Friday. Very good things to point out. Thank you, Susan.
Wow. So, yeah, that would, yeah, maybe there'll be a big one. That would be about 10 days from now, right? Well, we got 31 days in March. So we have a week. Yeah, it'd be 10 days. So, yeah, we shall see. I do feel we were just sitting there, and it's like, if I got to tell you, my gut feelings are that it's going to be really bumpy this spring and summer. I mean, you could see how quickly everything is accelerating. It's really moving very, very quickly. How do you guys feel physically? That's another question, because we do have, obviously, all the frequencies out there. Many people are terrified of the concept of 6G. And, that also obviously is going to involve perhaps stuff going into the human shape, the human form. Again, we become the receiver, of the, impulses. No more need for technology, because you are the technology. We get it. I know you guys get all that too. So there's so many frequencies that we're bombarded with. But the natural ascension process is not easy in and of itself. If we didn't have all the craziness going on in the world, it would still be a challenging time, because you got to work through your stuff at this point in time. We're getting ready to clear away all the debris from the Kali Yuga and cleanse ourselves so we could go face the Bronze Age in good form.
Yeah, I mean, we're having some really strong, interesting Saturn energy being put at us. So, I mean, it makes sense if you're feeling down, or if you're just wobbly, or if you're up and down and you're just kind of under the weather. That Saturn can do things, and it forces you to process things up, and it also shows you really what needs work and where the weak points are. So even though it might feel oppressive, just continue to work through it and don't let it hold you down, whatever you do.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and then add that in April 4th, as Robbie is saying, you have that comet making its closest approach to Earth right before Easter. April 2nd's Passover. Pay attention to those holidays, because they usually have things on the itinerary when there's the holidays. Marielle says, clear and confused at the same time. Last few nights have been crazy. Days were fine, but nights have been iffy. Yeah, I think there's processing that we go through at night. And I've found that too. Like the first few hours before around midnight, I'd find myself waking up a lot of times with anxiety, feeling like there's something up. I don't know if we're just in a more receptive state and we're feeling everybody's anxiety. We are all of us that are working on the ascension path and clearing away that which we need to clear and keeping your temple as clear as possible. You're becoming way more empathetic, way more psychic. So you're going to be picking up on everything.
Mm-hmm. Ban Everything says, I've been stocking up on food and ways to produce more food and protect what I grow from weather and pests. That is so important. And one thing that I like to do is I'll spend a little bit of extra, and this is from, lessons, but I'll spend the extra on like getting those buckets, getting them in plastic buckets. I know that's not bulletproof, but it's better. Or maybe if you're stocking up, get those metal cans that the little turds can't chew through, because that's the thing. You can stock up and stock up and stock up, but if you have a weakness in your perimeter where, if mice start to find food, I mean, they're pretty quiet and they just sneak away with it for a while before you even realize it. So best to try to have it in a place and it's clean so you can see little dribbles. If they like get it and make a mess, you can see that right away, so you can protect your stockpile. So important to have the food, but also have a way to keep it. from getting infested.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's felt weird. There's one thing I noticed all throughout the years, and it didn't. I don't think I realized this to the early '90s. Whenever I felt like I had to maybe take a nap or lie down, because I was never a big one for napping or anything, I all of a sudden realized I was getting messages from the guide. So I was either needing to upload or download something. And you need to kind of shut off the everyday mind to do that. You don't need much. I mean, you could do it. And I used to do it in the car. If you got a half hour for lunch, I would just do a little meditation, focus in on the breathing, and change the REM patterns. Change your brainwave patterns, and then literally, this is why I think a lot of times a little power nap can leave you so refreshed. You have to kind of like upload or download to the higher self.
Well, yeah, and if you're processing extra, that can have like a pull on the body. So one thing I like to do is give my liver a little extra support, or a lot. That liver is very important for processing anger and sorrow and things like that. And, if you give your liver that support, you're going to be able to process more of those emotions, or you might have more of those old emotions come up, and they might appear to be something in your life right now, but really the anger is coming up, and you're just taking it out on the most thing that you think is apparent. Well, obviously it's this, but no, the anger has been in there for a while. So support that liver, drink lots of water, and that's really helpful for processing that stuff.
Meanwhile, around the world, the mud flood is still kind of ongoing. I think it was last night in live, somebody had just left a comment like that. I forget which location it was, St. Louis or something, and just sort of said, we're like 20 to 30 feet below us is like the last people that were mud flooded. How often does this happen? There was another video that popped up in my feed from another channel I've never heard of before. But what did it say? It said every 6,000 years, the Anunnaki reset humanity. And, there's so much of this info that's coming out now from so many different sources. And a lot of it's just rehashed AI programming, just being done by people to kind of, capitalize on the money. But at the same time, they're still sharing information with people. Hopefully most of it is usable. It shows that more of the masses are really waking up to what's going on planet Earth. When we talk about Anunnaki, I think more people know that word now. And it's, at first it was just everybody took everything Zechariah Sitchin had put out there into like his dozen books that he wrote. And you either, thought it was the new gospel, or, you just totally thought it was just bunk and junk and threw it away. But the reality is there's more Sumerian writings that have not been translated. There's like 4 to 5 times more that have not been translated that have been translated. And at the same time, these are things coming in after the system was put in place, in my mind. So even when we look at the Sumerian tales, those are being told from what I would say is the dark control system perspective. But at the same time, there's been layers of covering things up that have been going on. And when we got to the middle of the Kali Yuga, we had belief systems that, for the most part, the bigger belief systems, totally forgot of the fact that there were beings that came from elsewhere to here and literally ran the show. And then at some point in time, they disappeared. But they left, kings and queens and royalty behind to run the show, and secret societies. This is just part of what people are starting to realize now. And this is Mozambique. March flooding leaves 37 dead and 138,000 people, in having issues with being able to live where they've probably always lived. Hawaii is a mess. Everywhere you look, there's the same story going on. And also record snowfall, record heat, record rainfall, and then record drought. You have it all going on at the same time. It's just the extremes are getting far more extreme, which again makes it harder to survive on the planet, harder to have, consistent productive food supply. And everything that we see that's being done, it all is really attacking the food supply. So yeah, it is absolutely go time as far as being able to support yourself, because it's not far off. It's really not far off now where we might have total blackouts. I do think that we'll probably have internet outages for prolonged periods of time. I've been kind of expecting it. I'm a little surprised we haven't had it as bad as it could have been, but I do think that will be coming in spring and summer.
Well, it's definitely a concern for me. I mean, they're making this oil crisis, and you can see it's very, very deliberate. Is it real? That's extremely questionable, but I feel it's obvious that they're using it to create gouges. Somebody's using it to make more money, and that's where it's not fair, and that's where all of us who are very innocent and just trying to get by, we don't want the wars. We really, really don't. We just want to live in peace and exist. And, that's easier to do with community, and I understand we're all kind of separated right now for a reason, but that definitely makes it harder for us to get by without, without help. So it's so nice if you do have good neighbors and you do know people, cherish that, love that, appreciate that, grow that. That's, you just can't, you can't replace that. So if you do have it, what a blessing, and just kind of grow it and, gently see if you can get people on board with you. I know people probably don't want to hear what we talk about, but, you could encourage people, just for the heck of it, grab another extra bag of rice, and that's going to help the community. So for every person, you can say, hey, get a little backup. You just never know. You don't know what you don't know. And isn't that true? That's one big point for your community. If you can have one person get stocked up, you might save lives.
Everything is talking about the leaves of cowpea varieties. There's so many easy to grow native plants to, here in the South, for instance, that you probably don't even know about, because it's like all this has been just kind of like, it's been hidden. That's really what it's been. They've kind of wiped it out, the knowledge of all these very easy to grow plants that can be very nutritious. And so, it's just been all about controlling humanity in every way, shape, and form. This says Iraq officially declares its entry into the war alongside Iran against the United States and Israel. We have decided to respond and defend ourselves against the attacks targeting our official Popular Mobilization Forces, PMF. This comes as Israel and the U.S. continue to launch raids on PMF headquarters, killing numerous leaders. But, I mean, if you search and ask Chat or Grok, has Iraq officially entered the war, they'll say no. But again, this is the thing. They still say no to chemtrails when it's been just out there. So it's part of the disinformation campaign. This is talking about a little bit of a ritual going on over there in Iraq. And we saw this in Iran. They're literally burning effigies of Baal. Literally. Because you could tell what the official narrative is going to be at the end of this war. You already know the outcome has been predetermined, and it's going to be very predictable. And I guess the equivalent would be that if we're here in the U.S., it's like somebody that was in Germany in the 30s, and you get the picture. You get the picture. It's going to be about removing those people from power that were tied to the E-Man's list, and the only reason why we're still not having the majority of people like digging into that and that occupying all the talk, because it would be, if it's because we're faced with this, which is the prospects of a third world war that will go well beyond what the first and second did, and they were horrible things.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rough. The stories are really rough out there, and it's very difficult. But I do feel in many ways that, this could be coming to a close. I know last night we were talking about that it just felt like that there's certain ETs are waiting for a signal. They're waiting for a signal, and maybe that's a certain comet. Maybe has to do with the moon. I don't know, but it just feels like there's help just right on the cusp, and they're not able to intervene just yet. And what is that thing that will cross the line to allow them to intervene? I don't know. I really don't know. I remember there was a treaty that was up. It was last summer, and I don't know if there was a new treaty put in place or not, because I haven't gotten any information. But it had to do with whether or not the ETs or other beings would be allowed to show themselves to humans. Like, have we grown enough that we could understand expansion and understand that and accept that we're not, alone in this world? And those are very important things, and those are very honest questions to be asked from other beings, because is it safe? Is it truly safe? And I would say still the majority of people, they're not on board. They're just not quite there yet. I know a lot of us are. We're like, come on, what are you waiting for? But we're not in the majority, and I think that's where we get hung up.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to look at these old maps. Susan was saying, wasn't Iraq part of Persia? Well, when the Persian Empire was at its peak, it controlled a lot. Let me bring that up. These divide and conquer tactics are very, very effective, and they enable, again, beings to hide, to kind of hide behind the ever-changing outline barriers of these different empires. So, yeah, if you look at the Persian Empire, 500 BC, it does conquer Babylonia and, so all of Iraq, Syria, down through Palestine, and Turkey was all part of the Persian Empire then. When then again that ended up falling with Alexander the Great as he moved his way through. It's just, again, it's nonstop conquest with these different tribes. Egypt was one of the prime kingdoms, at the highest level back in that time. And when you look at Egypt today, yes, the Nile River, it gives so much life. But there's the Sahara, there's the Arabian Desert. I do think that the climate change has been more drastic than what they've told us. One thing, when you look at the maps, they never stay the same for long. Empires come, empires go, and the wars come and the wars go. What would be our population if we never had any of these wars? Going back the last, say, 3,000 years or so, I think it would be through the roof. I do think wars are like a population control method. It's probably one of the very biggest population control methods that the system does, and I can't see it any other way. Because here we are, we all saw this coming. None of us want it. None of the citizens want it, but the leaders still do it.
And, they fake passing laws just to keep us, kind of pacify us when it comes to the skies, but nothing really happens. I mean, it's becoming so obvious. It's becoming so obvious, and I think we are becoming a little bit more difficult to control. So that's definitely something that they have to make us a little more miserable, a little more poor, a little bit weaker, a little more tired, And, just because we're awakening, and, that's their way of pushing back and keeping us under control. But we need to take care of our bodies, take care of our temples, eat as best as we can, support your local farmers, because they work so hard. And then they're even offered, they get offers to not grow food, and get paid. And that's really not fair. And I know a lot of them are fighting that. If there's a way to fight that, they do, because they know they're kind of like a backbone. They're a backbone. So what an emotional struggle that must be, to be a farmer who, makes food for so many people. That's just got to be hard to sit with in your heart.
Yeah. So yes, Iraq is absolutely being pulled in to this conflict, and of course they've seen two massive wars that have done massive damage to the population. But they're not the only ones that are being pulled in too. It's a lot of countries. You could see it's really developing, and the ground side of things is going to happen. It's pretty obvious. I might expect them just to try to go and control Karg Island. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case at all, that they'd really attempt to land substantial force to control that island and maybe the immediate area there. They're sending the 82nd Airborne, and this is Major General Brandon Tegtmeyer, commander of the 82nd Airborne Division, deploying immediately with his entire headquarters staff to the Middle East. Pentagon's actively planning major ground operations, boots on the ground. This is not going to be like what we saw in Iraq both times. It's going to be very, very different. In fact, we were talking again about the aircraft carriers. Two of them apparently got damaged, right? One of them is going to be out of order at least a year. 18 months is what they are saying. That might not see any action for the remainder of this war, because it seems like this war is well, if the the Polish psychic, let's go a little farther north to Poland, is correct, it's going to last through the middle of 2028. Has he ever been wrong? I'm sure. I mean, he has, seen things that don't come to pass, but he's been right a lot, and he's been so on when it comes to this conflict. I think this is really one of his big purposes in his life, was to not just help the police find missing persons and solve murders and things like that, but to kind of give us all a heads up for this period in time, for those that will listen. So, this is talking about how welcome to Vietnam 2.0. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like that. Vietnam War actually lasted a long time. I don't think this is going to last this long. I think this will be shorter than World War I and II, maybe close to World War I, but probably shorter. The problem is a lot more damage could be done a lot quicker. That is really the reality. We talked about the UK raising their age for recruits, or pulling back people into service that were in the service but had retired out. All the way up to, I think it was 55. And in the U.S. now, the Army is raising the enlistment age. So, if you don't have anything going for yourself and you think, I might as well go join the military, please think twice. But besides that, you could be, 41, 42 years of age and go in. And also, they're easing restrictions on marijuana usage, too. Yeah, to me, I always look at this like, what do these military-industrial complex machines do? They literally, there's a lot of different terms. You've heard the term meat grinder. That's literally what they are. They're a population culling tool. They lower the global population. And also, when you think about who goes, it's primarily the ages that are going to be having other kids. So those kids never get born, the ones that don't make it back. And obviously they make an awful lot of profit for those people that are heavily invested in weaponry.
And the age 42 is so important for any human. That is such a pivotal age. It's where you start to find your way, and it might not be exactly 42. It could be anywhere from 40 to say 43 or 45. I mean, it depends on what you have going on in your life. You might be stunted in a way. So you might be making that turn at 42, but life is just now really getting to it, turning that corner around 45, 46. And that's sad. I mean, so these people are just right in a very fertile part of their life, and they're getting thrown into this. And I think that's very deliberate too. And always keeping in mind that what we're looking here, this is not human beings putting this together. This is like reptilian and Draco level that we're looking at. So anytime we're looking at 3D stuff, we know there's that upper higher hand that's playing all of it, playing all of it to a very, very high degree. This is a very complex system that's being put together, and the only way it could have any construct to it really is if somebody has already done this and they've seen this cycle before, and they know, and then they can predict what humans are going to do, and therefore they would have that upper hand.
So this is a former CIA officer, Larry Johnson, and he says Israel's not looking for protection. No, they're moving with a dangerous doctrine that believes in the right to control all the way from the Nile to the Euphrates, and just taking over this area. We've talked about this. People know what's going on. It's the Greater Israel Project. This is exactly what it is. So when you look at it, it's 100% of Palestine, 100% of Jordan, 100% of Lebanon, 70% of Syria, 50% of Iraq, 33% of Saudi Arabia, and Egypt up to the Nile, maybe 20%, but maybe some of the more productive points. So this is what is completely motivating Netanyahu in my mind.
Yeah, I would say so too. And again, always looking at the higher reason behind everything. It's just not what we're being shown on the media. So it's like we're all being gaslit. We're all being gaslit to such a high degree, and I think that's a lot of emotional processing that we need to do, because not only do we look at this, and this is pretty much for us, you guys in the room, like when we see something on mainstream, it's like we know there's another layer to it that's obvious to us. So it's like we're double processing, like, how does this affect me in my 3D world, and what the heck is going on a little bit higher up, and how can I have the foresight to really prepare what I actually need? Because we can't prepare for anything. I mean, we're trying to take a step back and look, okay, we don't want to just do stuff out of fear. You don't want to do stuff out of fear, but how can you take a step back and look and say, well, what could help you? And I mean, we would really love to work with brick and work with stone. So, hey, let's just get a pallet of brick or stone. That would be nice. I'm not getting it out of fear. I'm getting it because I want it, and I can make an outdoor oven, but it can also help me prepare myself for what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you noticed, there's a little bit of Turkey that is part of this. The Polish psychic has gotten that there's an agreement in place right now from Russia and Turkey. They're waiting. Iran's duty is to get the U.S. and Israel to expend as much of their weaponry as possible. And then Turkey and Russia and China will all get involved. It's a lot. Meanwhile, U.S. allies Saudi and UAE edge towards joining the Iranian war. Yeah, apparently, I don't know if Mohammed bin Salman's been killed twice, because there was another time too when there was something weird that happened and reports were confused. But again, it doesn't really matter when they can again pull clones out of the hat, or if you don't believe that clones are real, but they are, actors. It's people playing positions until it's useful to say that somebody was actually assassinated, and that gives you the logic for another escalation. So yeah, Saudi Arabia and UAE are taking steps towards joining the Iran war, according to the Wall Street Journal. Again, when you realize that anything, like when you look at the Wall Street Journal, when you put information out there, it can cause people to buy or sell, right? I mean, that's just natural. So do you think that somebody at the higher level might put out information knowing it might drive up some stocks that they own or some asset class, some commodities that they own? Yes, absolutely. This is going on with the oil right now and the natural gas. So yeah, this is going to expand, and it's going to expand really dramatically. You have a Russian oil tanker playing chicken with Trump over Cuba. Russia appears to be testing U.S. commitment in the Western Hemisphere, as Washington already battles the Kremlin's influence on other fronts. The Anatoly Kolotkin is steaming towards the Caribbean. The Russian oil tanker's official destination, according to one of its public broadcasts, Atlantis, USA. Oh, that's an interesting location. Atlantis, USA. Well, it's saying a lot there. More probably it's the Cuban port of Matanzas. With 730,000 barrels of crude oil being brought across. The tanker's flagged Russian. So if the U.S. does anything to it, it could be a direct attack on Russia, which again could escalate the war.
Yeah, it's just really getting super crazy.
So yeah, we do have a gas stove, that we could utilize, but I really think it's a good idea to build like an outdoor. I was going to do a brick oven with cinder blocks and then some bricks. It's just another project to add to the list, and this is why the days feel so short right now, because we're trying to do so many things at one time, knowing what's coming. Russia discovers hundreds of booby-trapped boot insoles. Kid you not. Yeah, and they say that little country in the Middle East, begins with an I. Did it. Yes, rigged with enough explosives to blow soldiers' legs off. Well, you remember they had the booby-trapped phones, right? So, yeah, this is going back, and they're tying this to Mossad. These were sent from Poland, smuggled by Ukrainian intelligence. So Ukrainian intelligence working with Mossad in order to booby trap Russian soldiers' boots. Kid you not. Then you have a Chinese publication claiming the U.S. has 2 months of rare earth elements left. Think about this. What would that mean? We'd have a hard time continuing the war. And I think this is exactly what they've been doing with Ukraine for the longest time, and now this. The U.S. has already launched hundreds of missiles and precision-guided weapons in the escalating conflict with Iran. An air campaign that has consumed billions of dollars in advanced military hardware in just weeks. But a new warning circulating in Chinese and Western media suggests the materials needed to keep producing those weapons may be running dangerously low. Reports from the South China Morning Post and Reuters indicate Washington could have only weeks or months of certain rare earth inventories available. This is huge because these are used all throughout the modern military system, like missile guidance, drone propulsion, radar systems, fighter aircraft. This just shows you, like Tomahawks. Now, China has been just gobbling up all that the world has, literally. And for years now, they've been gobbling up excess food. They're bringing in tons of gold. They're so prepared for what is starting to transpire. And we have been so sabotaged here in the U.S., sending our manufacturing out and all this. We've been so sabotaged for so many years. And it's obviously, when you look to the left-right side of things, sure, it looks like the left was, a little bit more involved in that sabotaging than the right. But there were also those on the right that were also doing the same thing and taking feedback and money back to do things like that. Susan Donahue, bless your soul. We love you, Susan.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Yeah, rocket stoves, things like that. Absolutely. The refineries. There's been more than one. Yeah, there's been a lot of the sabotage going on. This is when we already are seeing, in my mind, some espionage going on from sleeper cells, but I think they'll go in earnest once there's that bigger strike. And whether it's Israel using something that looks close to an NUKE, or maybe something else, because Iran's been talking. And like last night, Iran used a different type of missile for the first time. And it had multiple warheads on it that got right through and caused like 10 or 12 different impact points.
Yeah, I look at this and I go backwards and I wonder, well, why would we advertise that exactly? Are we trying to just, pretend that we're weak, or are we really weak? I mean, we've been lied to so much. You really don't know head from tails. You just know that, okay, something's up. It looks like it's going in this direction, so you better do this and figure that out. And there's a lot of really good ideas in there in chat as far as getting ready, and what if you don't have a lot of things. Someone said in there, it was really wonderful, a cardboard box with a oven. I don't know how to do that. I would have to look it up, but sure. I mean, there's so much we can do with just what we have around us, and we might need to learn to be resourceful. So, looking at things like just how to reuse, how to put things together from junk, basically, is what we may have to get good at.
Yeah, Amanda was saying you could make a solar oven just from aluminum foil in a cardboard box. Yeah, that's being very, very inventive, and that's frugal too. But so basically, what's coming out is that we're not going to have the ability to keep going. And so we'll be in the position where we won't be able to keep up with the manufacturing, and you're going to have China and India are the most populous nations. China seems to have a little bit better military than India, but actually India is supposed to pass China at some point, maybe in about 5 to 10 years, with total economic output. But here you go. This just says we won't be able to wage war for too long, and that's obviously been the strategy the whole time. So, again, outcome very predictable. Victor Gao, humanity must unite to defeat the global Epstein class. Wars waged by U.S. and Israel contain evil elements. Again, Nazi Germany back in the 30s and 40s, Epstein, Biden's, Obama's, et cetera, and now Trump administration here in the 2020s. So the history is just, it's already written. The script is completely written. I think we can change outcomes to a degree, and certainly in our own lives drastically. Again, we are the co-creators of this reality, and the more people that call it for what it is and try to work together to step outside of the system, because this ultimately is the system doing the last thing it could really do.
Yeah, and Amanda had a wonderful suggestion about a do-it-yourself solar oven instructions video on Rose Red Homestead channel. I will definitely have to check that out. That sounds just like a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a million channels out there. Well, there's more than a million. I think there's like 5 million YouTube channels, and there's so many great channels out there, and there's so many great people out there homesteading and trying to go that route. I really think if we want to remain in a city, like especially a big city, because this is where they've planned for this, and really some of our absolute favorite people in the whole world are in the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, and things there. They're so EU totalitarian with all the rules and regulations and everything. It's so Orwellian. It's so Big Brother going just rampant, like not enough resistance in those places. not enough resistance. It needs to amp up. People need to do more. Whatever you can do. I mean, we've done a few things with, informing our senators and stuff about our feelings on certain things, like, just unprocessed milk. It's just things like that. I mean, you could do little things like signing signing whatchamacallit,
those
petitions and things,
yeah,
and
that's important
you know,
at your lower level.
I'm honestly even been thinking about going to the farmer's market, or even just getting a soapbox in a little downtown where we are, and starting to just talk to people out in the open about what's really going on, how we're being manipulated. That does get very dangerous. Step outside the box. Thank you so much, Bob Hawk. Much appreciated. And then our brother Robbie over there. And we think you're pretty amazing too, all of you guys.
Oh, you guys are just wonderful. We're sticking together. We're creating a thing. We are creating a wave. And when we keep coming back day after day after day, is if we can get here, then we're here. And then you guys really make it count. And then we're creating something huge together. And it's just so appreciated that you continue to help us, so that we can keep doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have had one friend that was living in the greater LA area that moved here locally to be closer to us. We have another friend from the greater Phoenix area that also moved to our greater area here. And quite a few family members that are thinking about the same thing, because I know it's going to take more of a tribe to really make it through the next several years, and then even moving forward from there. Unite. Humanity must unite, but what's that going to look like? I think it's going to look a lot like a tribal type of thing.
Well, to start out, though, it needs to be very grassroots. It needs to be like whatever you have in your community. Everyone has kind of like their own space, and they do their own thing. And, maybe somebody makes soap, maybe somebody grows apples, just everybody kind of doing their own thing. And then if things get tough, then we all come together with, whatever we can offer, and then trade around that way. But I think it's very important that it's grassroots, and just not trying to do it suddenly. And if you're someone and you already have a community, just grow that community, because we're at where we're at for a reason.
Yeah, and at different times I thought that it might be in Western North Carolina, and then I thought, well, it might be in New Mexico. But for now, and it's weird, because I feel like there is something out there that kind of tells me that when we get to that 2028 period, there might be mass migrations. I think even before that, we might have mass migrations. We did get that from the guides before, that there was going to be mass migrations inside the U.S., from people escaping areas where the war was going on, and also some of the earth changes, like flooding and things like that. So, again, I do think it's great to work with people. You got to find your tribe. And, this is a tribe right here. We have a tribe right here. So those are close to others in this group, because there are a lot of you guys bunched together in different areas. There's quite a few up over in Vancouver, over between Vancouver and Seattle, there's a bunch. And in other areas, we have a whole bunch of people that we see in Texas. And from Texas, but from everywhere, a whole bunch, from the Asheville area too. There's quite a few of you guys. So all over, it's really coming together and working together, because energy lockdowns are coming. Cuba is the model. I agree. What you're seeing in Cuba right now, this is going to be us in the U.S. too. I do think we will have entire cities pitch black, unless you have, your own generator, and then think long term, because, oil and gas is going to be a thing that's going to be maybe as expensive as gold, when things get going. I've tossed around the idea too, and it's maybe too late right now. It would be a great idea to get one of those big tanks for what's the gas that you put in the tanks? Propane.
Propane, yeah.
Propane, because
natural gas.
yeah, something like that. I think you got to be thinking about long term, and we are going to see bumpiness in this road ahead here in the U.S. because we are. It's like us in Israel are in some ways ticking off the entirety of the rest of the world, just about.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, we kind of have that bully complex where, we're making all these threats, and we have for a long time, and we have been bullies. And even though, like, the little people, me and you, and people like us, we don't have any intention to be mean or bullies. But those politicians and controllers, they do want the fight. They need the fight. It feeds them. It literally feeds them, and that makes me very, very sad. But the sooner we can come together, the better. Oh, there's our ER Karma Doc. Thanks for showing up. Always makes the place a little brighter.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, we want to thank our ER Karma Doc for all she's done for us personally. She's been a lifesaver. And this is a woman that is prepped. If you have a health issue, absolutely, go. Yeah, we do trust our Karma Doc with our lives. We do. But I would also absolutely feel comfortable with being in a war type scenario, and she's got the back. Yeah. Because this is a very strong, smart, powerful woman there.
Indeed, definitely. Somebody, we all want that energy in our corner, and all of us together, our energy matters, and we link together, and it creates something bigger than just us. So it's really good that we're all here, and we all have different things that we're good at. It's very important.
China is conducting a vast undersea mapping and monitoring operation across Pacific, Indian, and Arctic oceans, building detailed knowledge of marine conditions that naval experts say would be crucial for waging submarine warfare against the U.S. and its allies, whatever are left of them again. And China, by the way, actually has the largest navy in the world at this point. Well, the U.S. is down one aircraft carrier, so that means there's 10 left. Another one's damaged, so that means there's 9 that would be usable. China has 3, but they may very well be a thing of the past because, again, warfare is changing. Drones, it's more going to be about mobility. Your next thing we're going to see on the other side of this war is robots everywhere, not just in McDonald's. The Rothschild Bank in Paris has been raided due to the e-files. Yeah, this is what they tell us. I don't know if anybody's been charged with anything. I didn't see anything about that. So if this is just to make things look like somebody's doing something without doing something, then very disappointing. But maybe it's the first. Maybe it's the first step because even if the control system won't do anything, enough of us understand what's going on, and we know, truly, there's certain individuals out there, very wealthy, rich, and famous, that, man, if anybody should be arrested, it should be them. I do think that their days are truly numbered. But then again, the original one, will you ever know if you actually got the original one, or was it a body double? The E-Man, I think more people probably believe he's not dead than dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's just really such a cluster mess right there with all this going on. And, how much of it is, again, just for more distraction and just treating us like, just like little children. I mean, it's really awful. And then the gaslighting. Gosh, I keep mentioning the gaslighting. And I could just imagine, I can see like these poor people that are in court, having to pay their parking ticket. And I mean, look who is on the loose, and they're just walking around free as free can be. And look what they're doing. What's up with that?
It just hit me that we won't have Governor Newsom there anymore, and that made me feel really, really good briefly. Because boy, I don't know, but his face just ranks up there with Trudeau and Macron, as far as people that you wish you could erase them from memory. Thank goodness California won't have Newsom because again, because of his serving 8 years. 8 years. He won't be able to go back again. So they say right now 2 Republicans are leading in the way, and they've emerged as the top contenders in the race. Unless one of the Democratic candidates breaks out, the 2 Republicans could actually face each other in a final runoff in November. That's pretty wild. No Dem. Yeah, the people are getting tired of the way things have been done because, boy, it's just been the biggest con job you can imagine. And over here in France, last 48 hours, Europe is shifting. Le Pen's national rally wins 64 cities. AFD doubles its vote. Best result ever. Danish People's Party quadruples support. Borders, migration, sovereignty front and center. Europe's waking up fast. But, again, we recognize that they will gladly replace the old puppet with a new puppet. And, things just shift from the right to the left all the time. You don't like the Clintons, don't worry, you're going to get the Bushes. Then don't worry, you don't like the Bushes, you're going to get the Obamas. And, it just kind of keeps swinging a little bit farther out each time. How about we don't like the whole system? We need to really think differently. Get rid of all these political systems because they're all ultimately working for one system.
They do. They just put on a really, really good show. Ultimately, the same goalpost is there. The same goalpost is always there. It's just, which path are they going to take to it?
Yeah, and then you have Representative Tim Burkett, who said a lot of things that are almost, you in different times you'd probably be stunned to listen to him talk. UFO scientists found dead after testifying to Congress about UFO files. Something dark's going on here. I know these scientists and researchers, they've testified. We've got to get to the bottom of it. It's just too much. Too much is going on right now. And by the way, I'm not suicidal. Here's a list of mysterious disappearances or deaths. Right now we have retired Air Force Major General William Neal McCaslin. He's been missing since February 27th, 2026. We had Cindy try to remote view it, and it felt like he was being held hostage somewhere. Where? No clue. But it felt like he was being held hostage.
I can only see the dark room around him, and it's like bars in front, so I don't know if that's the universe's way of telling me that he's tied up right now, or if that's literal, or if he's just in a place and he can't get out, and it doesn't exactly look like that, but, it seems like he's being held back.
Aerospace materials scientist Monica Reza vanished on June 22nd, 2025 while hiking in Angeles National Forest. MIT fusion physicist Nuno Loureiro shot and killed December 2025 at his home. Caltech astrophysicist Carl Grillmar fatally shot February 16th, 2026 at his home. Novartis scientist Jason Thomas, body found in March 2026 after disappearing in December 2025. Yeah, it's just like what we saw about the naturopathic doctors, and the naturopathic doctors, there was like a 10-year period leading up to the plague upon the world where they were being just obviously picked off one after another. Hundreds, maybe even like 1,000 or more, literally. Accidents and sometimes burglaries, things like that. But, those type of burglaries where, there's a murder, but you don't know if anything was actually ever taken. That type of thing. So, what are they actually trying to cover up? They're giving us disclosure, but there's certain aspects of it that they don't want us understanding. And it might be okay to testify to Congress about certain things, but there's some things that they're not going to mention, but they still know. And that makes them very, very dangerous. Just like this, Elon. I think we all know that Elon's part of the next. He's playing the good cop. Some people play bad cops. He's going to play the good cop, and his thing is going to be to tempt us with technology, life expansion, etc., etc. His goal is to get us to assimilate to the Borg, and be part of that AI merger. That's his goal. He's just going to do it a different way. He's playing the good cop, and his real coming to primacy point in time is not until after the war, because then he'll be saying, "See, I told you, everything. These were all bad people. You never found anything about me in the E-files." So he comes out scot clear, and he's going to look like a good guy. More people will trust in him, and more people might actually consider things like getting assimilated into the AI hive mind complex.
Well, to me, with those titles, it's obvious that they know something more than what we do, or they have their hands on something really official that could be released or leaked that would just ruin the plans for everyone. I mean, there's a reason why they have those titles and all their research. They knew something. They knew something critical. Because look at how many of us, we know that there's other life out there. We know the things, but what do we have? We don't have something that they have. So they had knowledge, and usually it's the knowledge is when they want to really quiet people down, especially if there's a remote chance they can't control it.
Catherine Austin Fitz, who worked under the first Bush administration, claimed the U.S. had built secret underground cities for the ultra-wealthy and the elites there to go hide out in a near-extinction event that's coming. She served as the Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under George H.W. Bush. She had said that $21 trillion, thereabouts, in unauthorized spending occurred in the department between 1998 and 2015. And that where did it go? It was going towards 170 secret underground bases across the U.S. We know some of the locations, too, because you'll find the same sort of earthquakes happening there at the same depth, usually shallow. We have built an extraordinary number of underground bases and supposedly transportation systems, including bases located below oceans. These bases would be used if a near-extinction event were imminent or for the government to carry out secret projects, including a secret space program. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're ready for all this. And then part of it, too, is they got to be able to house the vampires when the vampires come.
Yeah, they got to figure out something for themselves.
That's the other part of it, is the realization that those that we call the Anunnaki are very much like vampires. They don't like the light. In fact, again, as we were saying in the previous live, your vampire legends, especially like as portrayed in like Underworld, where they're elites, they think of themselves as so much better than humans. They move about in the dark and they're in all the powerful places. That's very much like the Anunnaki. It literally is, unfortunately, like those beings that when they were here, they were in their temples. When you talk about the temple to Enlil, over there in, again, the greater Babylonian Empire in the Sumer area, that was really his house, is what it was when he was in town. Literally, this is really the whole concept of them becoming like places of worship was actually developed later, because when they were here, again, they got the best of everything. And you see the depictions of the giants that were here amongst us. They ruled us. Then they left, right? And kingship was given from on high, from those that came from the sky. The Anunnaki gave kingship to the earth as a way for them to continue to rule in absentia. They're ruling even though you don't see them. They're still controlling things.
Yeah, that's the, that's been the trick all along, is, they definitely stay out of sight. It's very important. And I think that was something that was learned along the way. They realized that they need to stay back and out of the sight of humans, and that way they can have much, much, much more control as long as they're not right there.
It's because people are more motivated when they think they have a stake in things. If you're just a slave with no hope of moving up, you're only going to do so much. But if you tell people that they're contributing to a corporation, you got to work harder, or you're part of a country, and you got to be patriotic, it literally gets them to work harder and try harder.
Oh, Bear Brained Adventures, I'm so sorry. Lost your little brother in an auto accident. Please hold space for me. He was my best friend. I've lost a lot of people in my life, but never any that made me feel like I was. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're going through that. Yes, we will definitely hold space for you. Absolutely. And stick around for the last part, because we're going to run a little energy, and hopefully that's going to help you process. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Another quote-unquote meteorite going over Washington, Oregon. Look at how bright that was. Wow, look at that. Man, that turns it to daylight. Oh, by the way, Walmart's rolling out digital price tags. So, the price may change by the time you get up to check it out. It's going to be all digital now. So, part of that Big Brother thing. And, again, sorry, your social credit score is 575. You're not allowed to buy whatever it is. This is, part of what's coming here. Digital labels coming to all Walmarts by 2027.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just part of the bigger picture. But here we are. A lot of the population might still be blind, but this kitty doesn't need his eyes. He can sense and feel. We can too, and when we go to sleep, we don't use the physical eyes, but we still see, don't we? Light and sound. Everything is light and sound. The entirety of the manifested universe is this beautiful symphony of light and sound. And here we are. We're right in the middle of it. We are eternal beings. There never was a time when you were not. You're just simply having this temporary experience in this human meat suit at a crazy time in the age.
Mm-hmm. And now, more than ever, we need to use our senses, our God-given senses, to help us get through this, because we're being lied to left and right and in every direction. So just, hold your heart in love, and we're holding love for those who need it in the chat. And we're going to do some dings, and this video was very helpful. Thank you to Robbie, Bob Hawk, Miss Susan Donahue. We really appreciate that. And here we go. You guys are all so amazing. Thank you so much. Source bless and namaste.
Loka samasta suki no bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy and free, and may my own acts, words, thoughts, and deeds contribute to that happiness and freedom for all beings. That's a beautiful thought. Thank you guys so much. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.